Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Nonprofit Learning Lab for today's workshop. If you have any questions along the way for our presenter, you can type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel, which is likely on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any tech questions, you can also type them there. We will be sending out the recording and materials from today's workshop by the end of the day tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that email. And without further ado, I'll now hand it over to you, Ginny.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So we have a lot of content to cover today, and so I want to get through it. Also want to remind you all that it's really interesting to do a training on engagement to a group that cannot unmute themselves and engage. So I'm asking for you to please do so via the chat if you have questions or concerns. So welcome to Nurturing Safe Space. We're going to really focus on employee retention here, and I'll tell you just briefly about myself. I am a lawyer. I am a former nonprofit executive. I am not an expert in HR. I am simply someone who has spent many, many years managing people and have learned how to do things both by doing them right and usually by screwing them up. So I'm hoping just to impart some wisdom for you all as you're going through a really tough period in hiring, and as if the nonprofit sector isn't troublesome enough with management. So just a few things to reiterate what I said about being engaged, fully participate, and obviously to be open to the things that I'm sharing with you today, understanding that you all are tapped. I understand that your executive directors or otherwise leaders in your organization, you are tapped. Please be open to new ideas. You don't have to take it all, but do take some. I have a little poll to get an idea of where you are and why you are here today. So we'll launch that poll to get feedback from you. And as you're responding to that, I'm going to just cover your learning outcomes. We are going to look at what a healthy organizational culture looks like, because sometimes it's just really helpful to define that. And we're also going to look at methods of employee engagement that you all can utilize immediately and start making changes within your organizations. Once we have those poll results back, if you wouldn't mind sharing those.
They are live. Are you able to see them? I can also read them out.
I would love that. I cannot see them.
Sure. So 8% said, I need a quick fix to stop the purge. Burnout is real. 41% said, our staff is tired. I need solutions to bring them back. 16% said, I am seeking activities to build team as we return to normal. 32% said the team is good, but could always be better. And then 3% said other.
Okay, what you're sharing, they'll share in the chat. So I appreciate you guys being here. Those are about the numbers that I usually hear. And you know, the main thing is, if you are in a desperate place, that's okay. We can give you a few things that can help today. If you're not in a desperate place, we're going to keep you from going there. So that's really the overall focus. So one of the things that I've had to do in these past trainings is explain, like, why should you care about whether or not people are really engaged in your workplace and there's team? What are the reasons? And I usually have to say the why. I'm gonna gather that because of where you guys are right now, that is not the situation with this group. As always, the nonprofit sector has a really high turnover and retention issues, but even more so now than ever, and higher up at director level positions. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys to talk to me via chat about why employees leave. We can't do a full breakout in this format, but and won't be able to have a report back necessarily, but I want you to do it via your chat. That why do employees leave? And maybe this is from personal experience, maybe this is from kind of what you've heard overall. People leave their managers, you know, the languages that we all throw out into the world. But give me some feedback on why people leave, at least if they leave, why they leave your workspace.
Some of the responses we're getting include lack of feeling valued, poor exchange of benefits for the work they are doing. People leave because of their bosses. They leave for better pay. They're burnt out. They want more growth opportunities. There's too much work. The work-life balance is not there, not enough support, better salary elsewhere. The work culture is not a good fit. Sometimes there'll be parents and they're not able to work around their family schedule, poor leadership or management, volunteers not welcome to change, more pay outside of the nonprofit sphere. Thank you all for participating.
Yes, wonderful. Well, you did my job for me, so that part's done. Now, I appreciate that because I think that you all are experiencing in many same ways what we're seeing in the sectors, that there are a lot of factors, obviously, that can cause burnout, and some are personal, and then others are directly related to kind of the nonprofit sector and how we interpret our charity work. 49% of individuals in a nonprofit HR report, 49% of individuals said that nonprofits don't pay enough, and 19% said there's little to no opportunity for growth. This is a report from 2020, by the way. I would guess the numbers are much higher that would respond to the pay is not good enough and there's no opportunity for growth. 12% said that nonprofits are not well-run businesses. I would say that's also higher. And the reason being is because employee tolerance level for not running all good business, not having opportunity to grow and to be better and to make and be in a higher enough position or to make more money, they have less tolerance to do it. The other side of that is the things that we know to be true just on in a cultural level. So organizations often bring people in who are really passionate about the issue, and this commitment leads to employees sacrificing their personal time and ignoring their own needs and limits, right? So if this happens over an extended period of time, burnout's going to happen. That people care so much about what they're doing that they work long hours, they receive less wages, and then they're unwilling to advocate for themselves against what they perceive to be the better interests of the organization. And I mean, that's a recipe for burnout, right? And really resentment overall. The other is unhealthy organizational culture. So I don't know how many of you, and you're certainly welcome to share in the chat if you believe this is a safe space, but do you celebrate exhaustion in your business? Is like the guy working the hardest, sacrificing their family, getting the most attention? And do you see your supervisor never disconnecting? So then it looks like everyone has to be plugged in always, and those people are praised for doing so. The metrics that we use, like wages, benefits, and security, or opportunities for advancement, those kinds of things are played against what a culture is. And so even if all day long you're saying, we want to take care of you, if your culture is not fitting that, it won't matter. And then at the end of the day, what about bureaucracy? So are space and time micromanaged and not flexible? Gosh, isn't this the word of the day? Flexibility. That employees are really not empowered or trusted to get the job done as they see fit, and they're feeling tied down and they want out. So we have to look at our employees, the most precious resource the organization has. And if that's the case, then how do we make sure that employees don't burn out and end up costing more money at the end of the day? So looking at healthy organizational culture, we want to look at how are the organization's values and behaviors really integrated across the organization. It's one thing to put it in a handbook, it's another to live it. So here are some healthy workplace indicators. This is a big one, guys. How many organizations live like things are always on fire? Panic, it's the end of the world. You can't do that in an organization if you want your people to survive. They can't live in a high crisis mode all the time. Really interesting, I tell my clients, 97% of my clients will message and say one of my employees is in crisis. It's because there's just a general, like, we don't pay attention to something unless it is a crisis level, and that is not a way that you can live your life. Is the organization mission focused? And what I mean by that, mission focused, but not money focused, so not fund driven, not person focused, not a board chair, a founder, an executive director, but organization's mission focused. Or is it organizational focused? Are we making all of our decisions for survival of the organization and not for the mission itself? Do we invest in our employees? Are people the priority? Are we giving them money? Are we paying them enough? Living by self-care and having it as a mantra, that it's selfish to not take care of yourself because it trickles down to others and to the mission, and communicating that out. Allowing a flexible schedule that provides for trust, but also that doesn't lead to more stress if that flexible time is taken, right? I mean, we have to help them balance so that it allows for that flexibility. Is there community? Do you have team rituals, bonding, intentional relationship building, especially in this remote world? Are we doing what we can, investing the time that we can in intentionally building relationships among our team? Excuse me. Do we measure people by what they are producing versus their project? So are we really looking at them as more as task producers? Are we looking at them in a qualitative way to see the impact that they're making on the mission? If you measure people in terms of numbers all the time, that is not necessarily going to show what they're producing. And it's unfair to them, frankly. Are you a culture of yes, where ideas and change are welcome and often celebrated? This is fun to do with your kids, right? To just have a day where you say yes to everything. And the same is true for your workplace. If you're burned out, as a leader, people will come to you and they will ask you for opportunities for change. They'll make suggestions and you will say no immediately before you've given any thought to it. That is not a culture of yes, and that will actually burn your employees out. It will push them out the door. And then incremental change. That change must be positive and incremental and really proactive rather than reactive. So employee engagement is something that when we talk about it, you want to say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to do some employee engagement. We're going to have a team building. And then after that, it's over. This is not something that is over. It has to become part of your organization, and your team will actually stay if they understand the motivations of why they are there. What is the reason why they come together as a group? So along those same lines, if any of you have read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, he really tried to focus on helping people become more inspired in work, and in turn, how those people then inspire their colleagues or their customers based on how they understand their own motivations. And so helping your staff members understand their why, having them understand their reason for being in the nonprofit, but also the personal reasons that have them there. Are they looking to develop professionally in a certain area? Are they interested in building community with a certain sector or population? What drives them internally? And identifying that is really key. Wouldn't we say that as leaders, that's important as well, that we have to understand what inspires us so that we can then inspire others? So if they know their why, then we have to think about how do we make sure that their contribution is heard and that they feel appreciated. And the way that we do that is by looking at their 5 languages of appreciation. Gary Chapman actually wrote 5 love languages. He did a similar book for the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And those are affirmations, so words of affirmation, acts of service, so doing something for someone the way they would want it to be done, particularly important component, not the way you want to do it, the way they want it to be done. Gift giving, obviously, this is a pretty easy one where you are giving people little Circes, little gifts, so that they will recognize their own value, and that you've been thinking about them. And people who are gift givers, this is their language, oftentimes will be the ones giving it to you, so that will help you understand which ones are have that language. Quality time, so spending individual time with them. These are your teammates that will be most often really appreciative of your supervision time with them that's square and set forward. And then lastly, appropriate physical touch is a little bit strange for the workplace, but this one is really key right now, because you don't have personal contact necessarily, because it's remote or because it's virtual or it's hybrid. You're not giving those handshakes or the high fives or the fist bumps or the pat on the shoulder that you would have done previously. So you have to figure out ways to really supplement these individuals who fit within this category. So when we talk about psychological safety, this really has to do with individuals feeling safe taking risks in their relationships with their team members or in their communication on the team. So if for example, if a team member feels safe sharing feedback with someone face to face versus someone saying, I don't know, in a meeting and just shutting down. We really want people to feel like their voices are being heard. So there are a few components we can do that. And the biggest is strengthening relationships so that people feel like they are in a valued and trusted relationship with their teammates. So make it fun. And for those of you who are already guffawing at the idea of team building, you're really going to hate this suggestion. But incorporating some fun team building activities into your meetings just as a regular part of your agenda is super important, because relationships are harder than ever. It requires even more intention. You also can host some special gatherings that are purely social, creating those personal connections, making sure they don't drive back to the work, but actually involve getting to know each other's family members, having candid conversations, and allowing them opportunity to see each other as human beings, which is really a large component of this world. And people tend to second guess each other's decisions and the things that they say if they don't trust where it's coming from. And so you also want to live this example, right? As a leader, you want to be very humble, and you want to be vulnerable. So you go first. You lead by your tone, and you set that tone in your outings. And remembering, if you have a team meeting and you have made an error, being able to open up to that, being an example to the team of vulnerability in both making mistakes and also in understanding that you're not alone in this work is really important. And then knowing your employees is important to the strengthening of the relationships. Like I said, you've got to really know them. You have to know what motivates them. You need to know how they feel rewarded. You need to know how they feel threatened, so that you're able to really avoid that. And you want to think about, whenever you're building any of these team engagement, relationship building sort of opportunities, how do we make sure that this goes beyond just these like one-offs in staff meeting or one-off events? How do we actually put that into our focus and daily work, and ensuring that it's a team sort of approach? And so be really strategic about the way that you've lapped people, the way that you've coordinated them and have them working together. And the best way to do that and to stay on top of that is through supervision. So I have a quick question for you. If you have formal supervision, whether or not you have it, and if you do, what does it look like? And then let's talk about supervision as you get those answers in. So building intentional relationships with your direct reports is just quality time. And furthermore, it builds trust internally in you, so that you don't worry about the fact that maybe they're not doing something at home, right? I hear this from supervisors a lot, like, how do I know they're working? Well, we're going to make sure that we're measuring that in their supervision. We're going to give them dedicated, exclusive supervision time. It really needs to be structured, and I'm going to give you the 3 tips of how to structure that right now. First, you're going to start out with the people. How are you doing? What else is happening in your life? Are you caring for yourself? The people, that's important. This is all a people game, right? If your employees are your number one most important resource, then how are they doing? The second is the work. What are your priorities this week? What do you need from me to accomplish these items? And then the last is the process. What's working? What's not? Is your schedule working? Should we move calls? Do we need to reorganize your schedule, set different priorities? What does team time look like? Do you have anything from me? Do you need anything from me to do your job better? Do I need to shift things for you? And I want you to really think about scheduling this evaluation based on qualitative metrics and not necessarily quantitative. Of course, we've got to put numbers in there for our strategic plan, but really focusing more on the qualitative impact to the mission overall. Do we have those poll results back yet?
Yes, we do. So
Okay.
24% said formal supervision with a set agenda biweekly. 62% said no set agenda, but regular dedicated check-ins. 10% said when we get a chance, and 4% said other.
Okay. Good. So it sounds like most of you are doing supervision. That's really important. I would strongly encourage you to implement the people, the work, and the process formula. Yes, it sounds very formulaic. It really will feel very unnatural for you in the beginning, and then it will become second nature. And this is exactly what we talk about when we say integrating something into your culture of your organization. Okay, so another language of the workplace is recognition and affirmation. This one's the easiest in my opinion, but you know what? That 81% of employees say that they seldom or never receive public praise. Wow, and it's that easy. 76% of employees seldom or never receive written appreciation from their managers, and 58% rarely or never receive praise at all from their managers. So this is such an easy, solvable problem. And for some of us, it's not natural. I actually used to coach myself before I go into a meeting and make a list of the people I needed to publicly praise for some of their performance, because it didn't come naturally to me to remember that, because I'm just kind of like, let's just get the work done. That's my personality. But I had that knowledge of myself and was able to then make a priority of going in and giving that affirmation publicly to people. It doesn't necessarily have to be public. You can write handwritten notes. You can give them some amount of appreciation through little awards and little things like that, but really it's just an affirmation of how they are performing and what you see that they are doing good. This one doesn't cost anything, and it actually takes you a lot less time. And don't think it has to be some difficult statement, right? Like this, the real secret of praise is that, like, the whole keep it simple, stupid, it just doesn't have to be complicated. Really just saying, hey, you did a good job is so easy and effective. Another one is privileges and gifts. So people who are speak the languages of gifts and acts of service, really, they don't see any value in their workplace if they don't receive things like this. So one of the recommendations I made was giving people access to online yoga classes, providing for a pizza party, giving them fitness watches. And I know all of you are sitting here saying, this all costs money. Let's get somebody to donate it. This is an investment on the front end, right? Send lunch to their home if they're remote. Get them little chocolates from the gas station when you're there getting gas. I kid you not. These are the things that they'll react to, and that is such an affordable, save money on the front end to get your return on the back instead of having to pay for the cost and turnover. And this will become very cultural, right? If you start doing it, others will start doing it, and so you will have created a cultural. A culture of giving in your organization. A quick poll about whether or not you actually provide professional development, because professional development is our last big point for today. So if we look at professional development, we know that few leaders have gotten to where they are without learning their way to the top. And many organizations tend to cut professional development immediately after they have ended the, cut the budget. Excuse me, I lost my track. After they have cut the budget. And if that's the case, you actually are determining that your employees are not worth that early on investment. That is a serious mistake that you're making and what you're saying and what you're communicating to your employees. So we want to make sure that our workplace builds a culture of learning overall, and that we're taking employees and we're giving them development in the areas that they cite as being important, as well as what you determine is important for the direction of the organization. The other side of this is if you have an employee who is not able to be promoted necessarily because you don't have the depth of leadership in your organization to do so, professional development can give them an area where a way that they can develop and become higher level professionals without necessarily the title. So I'd love to hear those poll results if we have those.
Yes, absolutely. So 52% said, yes, it is required and funded at least once per year. 44% said sometimes when we have the funding or it's free. And then 4% said no. Did we mention staff is tired?
So thank you. I'm going to speak to the 4% for just a second here. The professional development component is actually going to motivate people. It's going to bring them back from the brink. But it has to be not just one more webinar. It has to be something that really speaks to them. So I'll give you an example. I had an employee who worked for me as a licensed therapist. I could tell that some things seemed to be wavering with her. And I checked in, and she just said that she just wasn't sure if this work was particularly where she wanted to be anymore. And so I asked her, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, I just think I want to do something really crazy, but I don't want to make a leap. I hope you don't judge me for this, but I'm thinking about going to be a hairstylist. Well, I spent staff agency time giving her the time off to go and take sessions about learning to be a hairstylist. That was in year 4 of her employment with us. And 10 years later, she was still with the organization as a licensed therapist, and told me that one of the biggest reasons was that I had supported and invested in her in an area of professional development that had nothing to do with the organization, but had everything to do with her. Now, your organization may not have the luxury of doing that, but you can think of ways that you can invest in people as human beings, and that we care about them, and not just the organization, but we care about them for purposes of achieving this mission. So what I'd like to do at this point is I would like to take about 2 minutes if we can. We're gonna have a little silent space, because I want you to talk, I want you to tell me, or tell yourself really, not me, because you don't get to share on this. I'd like to take 2 minutes for you to say, what are some things today that you're gonna start doing? I don't want you to try to solve all the world's problems today. I want you to just say, what can I do today that is I'm going to start that will enhance my employees' retention? What am I going to stop doing? There's probably some poison in the organization that needs to stop, and maybe you're not doing it, but maybe someone else is. What am I going to stop? And then what am I going to keep doing? What's working? What am I doing well that is going to contribute to this organization? And if you feel comfortable sharing that in the chat, I would love to get that feedback as I give you just another minute or so to make those notes. Okay, are we getting any feedback in the chat as to what some folks will start, stop, or keep?
Yes, we do. Let me read them out for you.
Yes.
So we have someone said that they will buy lunch for their team more often. One is stopping right now on way to work to pick up sweet treats for the team. Start asking more of how are you doing in one-on-one meetings with staff. Want to learn how my team wants to be awarded and recognized. We'll start writing notes of appreciation. Already do these things verbally. And then start public appreciation, more frequent praise. Stop creating a culture of overworking. Do people work process and weekly check-ins. Thank you all for typing in the chat.
Yes. Wow, that's powerful. You know, I heard someone say, stop the culture of exhaustion and promoting that. Can I get an amen? That is so moving to me. That is, the nonprofit sector is terrible at that, and we have to stop that. So thank you for that. All these other things, just remember, as supervisors, we feel like we have to solve the world's problems, right? We're gonna fix this employee. We're gonna make everything better. And I would say this: identify their languages of appreciation. Create a culture of team, that is healthy. Look at these markers, and if it's not where it needs to be, then fix it. But at the end of the day, we can't control other human beings. We can't make them perform the way that we want to. You just need to be able to say, I left it all on the table, and I did everything that I could. I did not, I gave them the best workplace that they could have, and then be okay if it's not your workplace that was there. And then I'm gonna end with a poem, because this is really what I based the whole training on. I'm going to read this out loud for you guys, and I feel like this is pretty powerful for me, and it reminds me of why I really got into the nonprofit sector. Invitation to Brave Space, written by Mickey Scott Bay Jones. Listen, together we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. The space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. Hope that inspires you today to go out and do what you need to do in your workplaces, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Ginny. This workshop has come to a close. All attendees will receive the recording and materials from this workshop via an email by the end of the day tomorrow. Thank you all so much for participating. And again, thank you so much, Ginny, for educating our community.